great exhilarating feeling. I don't feel a day over 84.
That was former President George H.W. Bush back in 2009 after making a parachute jump to celebrate his 85th birthday. And that would not be the last time President Bush would skydive. He celebrated his 90th birthday by parachuting out of a helicopter in Kennebunkport, Maine. That jump in 2014 would be the 8th and final time he would skydive. Over the years, he invited others to join him on these birthday jumps. HLN anchor Robin Meade is one of those who took up the offer. Robin rode with President Bush on a plane, and the two took their turn skydiving as he marked his 85th birthday. Robin's joining us now from Atlanta. Wow, Robin, what sticks out in your mind? What do you remember, first of all, about that skydive, and what do you remember about President Bush doing that with you?
There's so many memories, and I'm thinking so much about the family today. He was so human, compassionate, funny, smart, and engaged, you know, even at 85 then. There's all kinds of tape of us jumping, and the interviews have been played. The things that were behind the scenes really stick out in my mind. For example, when it came time to jump, I started to panic because I did the interview beforehand. I was thinking about the questions. I started to panic on the plane, and he saw it. And I asked, where's the oxygen? Somewhere there exists a picture of the two of us together with oxygen masks on so I could get settled down before the jump. He didn't have to do that. He knew how to jump. He'd done it before. But he was so compassionate that you could see that he was not going to make me huff the oxygen alone. And so there we were. Now, that day, Wolf, it was rainy. We were going to jump on a postage-sized stamp of land. There was a church steeple there in Kennebunkport, a flagpole, all kinds of things going on, and they needed a hole in the weather. We were broadcasting it live, so everything was like about timing. And he asked the guys, hey guys, I want to show Robin my boat. Could you fly around and tilt the plane so I can show her my boat? And I said, Mr. Bush, I could clearly see the boat and I could count the engines. Mr. Bush, why do you need 900 horsepower? And he said, to beat the guy who has 800 horsepower. It was almost like a no-duh answer, but it was so, I think, an evidence of a man who was competitive. Even at the age of 85, he needed the horsepower to beat the guy that had 800. And I just loved it about him because you need to be competitive in nature if you're ever going to run for office. And he still had that. He still had that zing then. Now, when we got back on the air, back on the ground after the jump, I was doing live shots about it and about the interview, and up rolls a black car behind me, and the window goes down, and it's President Bush. And he says, Robin, why don't you come to the house now with your husband and have some cake with us? He didn't have to invite me. I'm just some reporter to him. And he did that, and I said, well, Mr. Bush, I really can't. I have to talk about you and do live shots. And he said, well, then why don't you and your husband come over to the house tomorrow morning and have brunch with us? Would you do that? And I was like, yes. So I'm scurrying around and making all my travel plans change. And so I go there. And he didn't obviously have to invite my husband, but he knew my husband was there. And so there are the two of us, you know, kids from a cornfield in Ohio, in Kennebunkport on the back porch of their home there. And we sit there and have a brunch. And he's so thoughtful. He asked my husband what he wanted to drink and what we wanted for breakfast. And we sat there and talked about, oh, you know what? My husband left his phone on and the phone rings while we're sitting with a former president. And I just wanted to kick him under the table. And he says, it's your mother. And Mr. Bush goes, let me answer it. Let me prank your mother. Let me answer it. So he picks up the phone. My mother thinks it's me. She thinks I'm home already back in Atlanta. She doesn't know about I've stayed with the Bushes for the morning. And my mother, quite the prankster herself, says, well, are you all bushed out? Thinking she's funny with her daughter. And Mr. Bush answers and says, well, Ms. Meade, this is Herbert, H. Walker Bush. And my mom's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But those are the moments that he didn't have to be engaged. He didn't have to. And we talked about when he was running again. And he said, yeah, the winds had changed and the people didn't want me anymore. And all those years later, I saw the hurt that he still felt about losing the second election, about not being in the office for 8 years. And it just reminded me, so many times we see these people run, and you run and you run. But there is a hurt afterward, even though he was so respectful about the people who followed him and about the respect for the office. I could go on and on. It's the behind the scenes thing that I think were really the measure of a man. They didn't have to invite me to their home. The whole family was there, a celebration for his birthday. When I came in that morning to their compound, and they don't even like the word compound, there were 2 golf carts. One said, property of 41, hands off. The other said, property of 43, hands off. And I was like, what's up with that? He's like, oh, those grandchildren, they'll take Gampy's, golf cart, and I need it. So, to us, he's a former president. To people who know him as a friend, he's a compassionate, warm person. But to the family, he was grandpa. And I felt so fortunate just to share a glimpse in that, and to jump with a man who, the first time he had to jump in World War II in the service to this great nation. My thoughts to the family. And I've run on, and I could tell you more stories, but what a treasure, and I'm very grateful.
It was really an amazing experience for you and for him. Very quickly, how did it get started? All of a sudden, Robin Meade of HLN is skydiving with the president, the former president of the United States, who's then, 85 years old. Who came up with that idea?
I'm not sure. I think it had to do with the Golden Knights, because we do a salute to the troops every morning for years and years on my morning show. And the Golden Knights had kept asking me, why don't you come and jump with us and do a story? And I kept saying no, and I would joke, because my name's on the show. If something happens, they're going to have to spend money on the graphics and change if something happens to me, they'll have to change the name. And I said, no, seriously, guys, come up with something that I can't say no to, and I'd be happy to. I'm just scared. Well, when the former president of the United States says, why don't you come jump and be the only person jumping with us and do it live on the air? If you're ever going to do it, that's the time, right? You've got the best with you. It's the Golden Knights. It is the Secret Service, and it's a former president of the United States. So I joke, I would do it for the story, but I wouldn't do it in real life.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad everything worked out, and you got a great memory there. Robin, thank you so much for sharing those memories with all of us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for letting me give the insight into just a wonderful family, a wonderful man.